Call to order the meeting of the Salem School Committee of Tuesday, January 21st. This meeting is taking place in person at 29 Highland Avenue, room 227. You can also join via Zoom using the link below. We do have one. Is Veronica, is she on currently?
Yes, I'm present.
Okay. We do have one member participating remotely, so while she is participating remotely, all votes will be by roll call vote. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the regular school committee agenda.
Seconded.
Moved by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Campbell. Roll call vote. Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Cornell?
Yes.
Member Cruz?
Yes.
Member Hoffman?
Yes.
Member Manning?
Yes.
Member Miranda?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Public comment. The Salem School Committee would like to hear from the public on issues that affect the school district and are within the scope of the committee's responsibilities. Spanish interpretation is available for anyone who needs it. The members of the school committee would like to remind the public that Salem Public School students regularly attend school committee meetings. We encourage all meeting participants to model respectful and productive public discourse for our young learners. Public comment in the room?
Thank you for having me. My name is Kate Mattern. My son, Teddy, is a kindergartner at the Bentley School. Before he was there, we were at the Salem Early Childhood Center for 2 years, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about their playground. I have some pictures, if I can pass these out to the school committee. I'm also happy to email those to you. The ECC is doing amazing work, but their playground that serves 130 3- and 4-year-old students every day is very bare bones. There's a swing set, a water table that has no water source, a short tunnel, and a spinning cup that's safety rated for children 5 through 12. Most parents only go inside the building a handful of times a year for parent-teacher conferences. Drop-off and pickup is outside. For many families, this playground is their first exposure to Salem Public Schools. And for many kids, this playground is their first glimpse at their first school. It's hard to get a 3-year-old excited about school when this is the play space that's waiting for them. As a parent, it's also hard to trust Salem Public Schools when your first exposure is a space that looks so unfinished. This park is owned by Parks and Rec, not by the school system. Parks and Rec was kind enough to co-sign on a CPA grant for a shade structure, which should be installed soon, for which I'm enormously grateful. However, because the equipment was selected by a previous principal, and because they have so many properties to manage, Parks and Rec cannot commit more money to this property or prioritize this property for grant opportunities anytime in the near future. Parks and Rec is willing to help place a small climbing structure if the costs were covered by the district. Over the past 2.5 years, I founded a PTA at the ECC in no small part to focus on this project. I've met with Superintendent Reich, Parks and Rec, Amanda Ciancola in the Department of Planning and Community Development, playground vendors, the landscape architecture. I wrote that shade structure grant. I've written to local businesses to see if we could find a sponsor. But I'm at a dead end, and I'm here tonight to ask for your help. I know that a lot is changing for Salem Public Schools, and that this property might not be the ECC in 5-10 years. However, in the meantime, hundreds of kids are going to use this playground every day. And personally, I don't think this project can wait. I'm not sure how that's accomplished, whether the property can be managed by the schools instead of the city, whether the district can find money for a play structure and work with Parks and Rec. If there's a corporate sponsor somewhere, perhaps equipment could be installed and then moved if the school were to be moved. But the ECC is the entryway to Salem Public Schools, and I think our kids and our families deserve better. Thank you.
Can I just,
Any other?
We're not supposed to respond.
can I just ask a question? I didn't catch something.
A clarifying question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just, I didn't quite catch what you said about Parks and Rec won't do another grant because, did you say the there was a previous principal involved?
Previous principal selected the equipment that's there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why. The equipment is a little underwhelming. But I think from Parks and Rec's perspective, they installed this playground, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And they have to prioritize other spaces.
okay, so the connection is not that it was a different principal, that it's fairly recent
I
in,
think they feel that the school district had input on it. and-
oh, okay, all right. I just didn't quite know what you meant by that. Okay, thank you.
Is there other public comment in the room? Anyone online? Public comment only? None?
Mayor, can I just? I just want to just thank Kate because her child doesn't even go to the ECC anymore, and she's been a strong voice and a force around advocating for the program there, and so I appreciate that even beyond her child's time at the ECC. So I just want to thank Kate for. Parents don't spend a ton of time there, but the fact that the advocacy has continued says a lot about your involvement. I hope you stay involved in the Salem Public Schools all throughout your child's experience. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful that program exists.
Right. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda. I'm not going to read all 6 of the items that are in here. Sorry, 10 of the items that are in here. I'll take a motion to accept these with the exception of the item number 4, which is the field trip to Salem, New Hampshire for the Salem Junior and Senior Winter Color Garden Percussion Ensemble Competition, March 15th. That, not Salem, Londonderry, apologize. Number 3, Londonderry trip, because that competition is taking place in Everett, Massachusetts, so it does not require school committee approval. So this is approval of the consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6.
To approve.
Under discussion.
Could we, my fault because I did not see this, I didn't look at it to see this was on, but can we pull out the basketball trip out of the consent agenda just so I can ask a couple of questions about it when we get to it?
Yeah, item number 2.
Well, yeah, I think it's 2. It's in February 19th or something. I'm flipping through here to see if I can find it quickly, but I can't, so if we can just
Yep.
move it.
Move to approve all but item 2 and 3.
Okay, here's the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Member Campbell, seconded by Member Cornell. Roll call vote. Member Cornell,
Yes.
Member Cruz,
Yes.
Member Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Manning,
Yep.
Member Miranda,
Yes.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Did you want to take up item number, the basketball field trip?
I'm still looking for it. I guess maybe the superintendent would just know the answer. I'm just want to be sure that we don't have. They're not. That's vacation dates, right?
That's right.
Are they playing in any games when they're down there? Are they actually playing basketball?
They will at least be practicing. I think they were looking to see if they could scrimmage. My understanding is the MIA has changed their ruling around
okay.
playing games.
Great.
So the coach was looking into that, but the key is that this is during vacation week.
All right.
And they were going to be playing basketball of some kind, whether that's practice or
Yeah,
a
but
scrimmage.
okay, but they.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not
The
going to be.
MIAA changes is enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
all
it's
right.
not going to be a like
Not a
set
tournament or anything.
A set game or
Yeah.
tournament. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to question.
Member Cornell?
Just related to this, because this did come up last year, and I specifically asked Coach Doyle if we were going to be in this situation again and there wasn't going to be an opportunity to engage in a game or other kinds of play, that students do some kind of service-related activity while they're there. And so I think this really obviously needs to get referred back to policies, because I think we have to take a look at these kind of trips where our students, whether they're missing school or not, I think there should be some kind of service component to this. If our kids are going to be out traveling together with no other agenda, and it's our, sort of stamp of approval on it. The same as last year, I'm not going to be the person to vote no, but I would have liked to have seen something like that on the agenda.
Member Cruz.
Can I, just a clarifying question, are you suggesting that we bring back the field trips policy to review? Not saying,
this
not
specific.
referring this particular trip?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure. I'd move to approve item 2.
Seconded.
Motion made by Member Cruz, second by Member Campbell. Roll call vote. Member Cruz.
Yes.
Member Hoffman.
Yes.
Member Manning.
Yes.
Member Miranda.
Yes.
Member Campbell.
Yes.
Member Cornell.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Student representatives report.
So after these past 4 weeks, due to the meeting not occurring 2 weeks ago, we have a lot that has happened. So we could not meet this week due to Martin Luther King Day. And so this was just from the 4 weeks and the meeting we had 2 weeks ago. We went over a building survey regarding the new high school, and students in the group were able to add anything they would like to prioritize. So anything that was science related or sports related, they could talk about. Any rooms they're talking about more collaborative spaces and more study areas. And we're also mentioning the grade configuration for the new school, whether that be 7 to 12 or 9 to 12. There are differing opinions on that. I think most people agreed on a 9 to 12. The other update, we have the update on the spice bar and the salad plate. Both have been fully implemented. More students are, I've seen personally, going to the spice bar. They're adding sriracha and hot sauce. And even tomorrow is National Hot Sauce Day. So we're trying new local brands of hot sauce that we're adding, the crank sauce. So that's good. We also have the salad plate that's fully introduced. We also have Mr. Wilkins coming back, and we now have an official meeting room in room 101. And that means we now have an official Google Meet that's set up for the New Liberty and Salem Prep students who weren't able to come originally just because due to transportation. And I'm even in touch with one of these students who wanted to join, so I'm going to have a call on Wednesday going out. And I have yet to hear from 2 other students, but that's TBD. And other than that, it's just midterms week, so everyone's a little stressed about midterms, but I think that everyone's got this. I think so. But that's it.
Mark, do you mind just also talk a little bit about, there's some new additions to the group.
Oh, yes.
And I think I want to give credit to one of the gentlemen sitting over there who presented to your group, right, about, did you mention the artificial intelligence conversation?
No, I did not.
'Cause I think that was
the
really
one thing
powerful.
I missed. So we did have a...
You had a lot to cover, Mark. Don't worry.
We had a meeting regarding AI usage and how Salem Public Schools took a rather slow and steady approach rather than banning it outright. And so that means the Mark LeBlanc, right? Yes, Mr. LeBlanc came in and he talked about how we were taking a slow and steady approach. And so he wanted to ask what our thoughts were and what we use AI for in our daily lives. And so we went over a lot of that and how Salem Public Schools should approach it their way. And yes, we did have our first official meeting with around 10, 12 new students, I'd say. 8 to 12, I'd say. But it's a lot bigger now. So.
And how were they selected, just so the committee knows?
It was by survey. So we had people come in through a survey, and we had the whole group talk about what they liked about the application and what we didn't like, if things could improve. But a majority of people were selected. I think there was only 1 or 2, but That's what we went over.
Question, Member Cruz.
Mark, thanks so much for your report, and it's great to see that you're all getting your house in order. I think one of the things that it would be great to discuss is one of the charges of the Student Advisory Committee is that they're actually supposed to be hosting monthly meetings with the school committee. So we know that you all have been busy with getting organized, your elections, securing a meeting room, all the important things that are necessary to have good governance. But I would love to propose, you have 2 liaisons on the committee, myself and Ms. Campbell, that perhaps we could get together to chat about having our first ever full school committee meeting with the Student Advisory Council. I think it would be great to have a committee of the whole, and we can talk about things that are on your minds, and that way the whole committee would get an opportunity to be able to engage with the advisory committee, and we can be in compliance with the law. So that would be really good.
I'd love that. That sounds perfect. We can work on a date for that.
Excellent.
I'm talking a lot here, but I'd be remiss if we didn't congratulate Mark on his acceptance to Boston University. It's a big deal. Very proud of him, and he should be proud of all the work he's done to get to that place, and I know he'll represent us well. So congratulations, Mark.
Good luck in the bean pot.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add something about the Spice Bar. This was a suggestion from the Student Advisory Group to the Food and Nutrition Services Department that students would enjoy the lunch more if they could customize their meals with their own spices. So we put out a survey, and the #1 requested spice was Frank's hot sauce, followed by sriracha. So both are available on the Spice Bar, and it's great to hear that students are enjoying it.
Anything else? All right. Thanks, Mark. Superintendent's report.
All right. It's going to be a spicy report here tonight.
Good.
No, but I got to say, listening to the spice conversation, I didn't even know what half the spices were that they referenced. Certainly when I was, in high school, I love how interested kids are in spicing up the food and making it more interesting. And I think we might have had like 30 to 40 recommendations of spices. So I don't know how big the spice bar is, but there was a lot of interest in a whole lot of spices, some that I had never heard of before. So, and I'm very excited about this group moving forward. We have a real good representation across the grade levels, very different perspectives, and for the first time in my time here, I think we are going to be able to do some powerful work with a strong base of student voice around. And Manny, thank you for your suggestion, or Mr. Cruz, that we bring, we haven't been able to have that joint meeting, and I think we've got the right folks to make that happen now. So thank you for that suggestion. I want to start by just congratulating all the students and staff that were part of the show Chicago this weekend. I was blown away by the talent. It was a spectacular performance. I want to thank Leah Hamilton French, who directs it, and there's so many other people to thank that I will forget. But certainly the staff and the students. If anybody questions the talent of our students, just check out the show. It seems to get better every year, and what I appreciate the most is the effort to be as inclusive as possible with any student who wants to be part of it can be part of it, whether they're part of the pit or they're part of the stage crew, and they included any student who wanted to perform had a chance to perform in that show. So that's a real credit to them. I also want to acknowledge the 4 students at Horace Mann who will be recognized next Monday at Salem State's 35th annual MLK Convocation and Celebration. Obviously, yesterday was MLK Day, but I want to call out these students, and I really want to call out Joel Tobin, who is the teacher, the 5th grade teacher at Horace Mann, who every year has his kids apply or submit essays. And I just want to acknowledge who those students are. The 5th grade co-winners were Emmanuel de la Cruz Odiena, Aaron Tafu, and Johnny San. And then Rosalie Mojica was named a runner-up. They will each receive $100, the 3 winners, and the runner-up $50. And they will also receive a copy of the book March by the late U.S. Congressman John Lewis. And so on next Monday, there'll be a luncheon where they'll be recognized. Everybody's invited to attend at Salem State. They wrote about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, which I think is as important as ever right now in this country. And I just applaud them and Mr. Tobin for making sure that our students have the opportunity to contribute to the civic, to this really important civic responsibility, and that they're part of this event every single year. So congratulations to all those students. We hope next year more students will apply to or submit essays to be part of the competition. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn to, I think, can we start with the calendar? My favorite topic every year. And I do, so we're going to start with the calendar for the upcoming school year. And of course, in Salem, we have multiple calendars. And this year, you actually have all the calendars in front of you already. We have them all. Carleton's calendar. We have the calendar for Salem High School and Salem Prep, which are together. And we have the calendar for the district as a whole, every other school in the district. And I just want to call out, I do have a recommendation, which you see here, but there is a question I want to pose to the committee and get your feedback on. But if you could go to the next, or yes, I can go to the next slide. Here we go. So just a couple things. The first day of school on the calendar in front of you, it's a lot clearer for us now with the language in the contract, and we worked with the STU on having a fixed first day of school. And I should have mentioned New Liberty has their own calendar too, so there's 4 separate calendars, of course. But the first day of school now is let me just see, is the work year for employees may begin no earlier than the Monday prior to Labor Day. So in honoring the language in the contract, the first day that students could start with 3 professional days for teachers is the last Thursday of August, which is the 28th of August, which would be the first day of school in this calendar. So it allows us to start before Labor Day. And then we would have school on the Friday before Labor Day, so there'd be 2 days, a short week for kids, 2 days that first week. The other thing that I note about this calendar this year is that per the discussions during the contract negotiations, Good Friday is no longer being observed as a day off, or no longer needs to be observed as a day off from school. There were a lot of strong feelings, I know, on part of the committee and in our negotiations, that this ensures consistency with how we support students and staff who celebrate a variety of religious holidays and have a variety of religious beliefs, that we don't recognize specific religious holidays in the calendar as a day off from school. Of course, Christmas does fall on winter break, but there are no other days in the calendar other than historically Good Friday that were connected to a particular religious religious belief. And this way, staff, if they needed to take the day off, as staff do for religious reasons, they can use a religious observance day for that. Halloween, there's never a perfect way to handle Halloween, but generally we got pretty decent feedback this year. The recommendation is to have an early release, and then staff would have a chance to get students and staff would have a chance to get home in time, and then we'd have asynchronous professional development. They could essentially work from home to do work that's assigned. We tried to make it a time for teachers to catch up with report cards or to complete grading and things like that, but that the work would be done from home so that students and staff could get home before the crowds arrive. And this year, Halloween is on a Friday, which will be a very, I don't have to tell anybody here, will be a very busy day in the city. And then, I just want to call out that there are back-to-back professional days in March. One is a full day, and the other is a half day. The reason people have asked, why would you do that? Why would you have 2 days back to back? And the thought process here is we're trying to move towards student-led conferences, and we want to pilot that next spring. Universally, some schools do student-led conferences now, but we need ample time to try to implement it and pilot it. And so the thought from the academics team and and Kate's team has been to build in 2 consecutive days, one a full day, one a half day, to give sufficient time for that to happen and see how it goes, and we get some feedback. That's why that looks that way in the calendar, to have the back-to-back days in March. So that's the thinking. I will point out, too, that there is in the contract the attendance incentive, that if staff are able, we have 95% attendance rate or better, that we would give back a professional day we take away a professional day and give people that off as a vacation day as an incentive. If that does happen, we don't know what will happen this year, the day that would come off the calendar for staff is the November 4th. That's typically the primary or election day. And that day would not be, it would just be a no school day for students and for staff. I just want to call that out. That was part of the conversation that we had with the STU, and so we'll see what the attendance rate looks like at the end of the year. So just some feedback. I did share this out to the staff, and predictably, I got a lot of feedback from people. More recently, I shared it with parents in the newsletter this week. And there's just a couple of things that I just want to share the feedback we've gotten. Some are recommending that students start after Labor Day, so that the first full week is not a full week for staff. Because if you look at that, it would be a full week of staff the last week of August. If we start after Labor Day, it just pushes the year back later in June. There is a lot, the most frequent feedback I received is that people are very concerned about student attendance on December 26th, 22nd, and 23rd, because, and they are recommending that these days be included in the winter break and that we push the school year 2 days. That's the question I have for you all. We did have very bad attendance this year on the 2 days we returned from break. It was the Thursday and Friday, the 2nd and the 3rd. We had terrible attendance on those days, and that's feedback that we've received from teachers that they would like us to consider. And I'm open to it. I'd love to hear what the committee has to say about. That would mean that essentially there'd be 2 full weeks of break over the December break for students and staff. Staff did raise concerns about the PD days in March, that they're consecutive, and they'd be worried that students will not attend school on Friday to have a long weekend. So Kate and I did discuss maybe moving those 2 days to Monday, Tuesday, so that people, so that there wouldn't be this temptation for people to take the Friday off. So that's another question I would have. And then there is this concern about Good Friday. I got a number of emails about Good Friday, and I know staff, other districts have struggled the first year they've implemented no school on Good Friday. I do think it'll be rocky the first time through, but I do think after that it'll be just the way we do things in Salem, that we do have school on Good Friday. Some suggested that we have a half day on Good Friday, but I don't want to shortchange kids on learning time in school. So I still recommend that we move with having school on Good Friday, but I just wanted to be open. I wanted to share with you what I heard from staff. And then there was concern about high school graduations might be in late May instead of early June. There's nothing that says that it has to be on the first Friday of June. That's just been the tradition in Salem. But it doesn't mean that we can't move the graduation earlier because the year ends earlier. My final reflections, I didn't change my, okay. My suggestion is that this is a draft, and I'll ask school committee for a final vote at the February 3rd meeting. I'd like to put it on the table and let it marinate out there for a couple of weeks before we take a final vote. Bentley does plan to follow the Salem Public Schools calendar. I just let people know. They have we could have a 5th calendar if Bentley wanted to have their own calendar. And I know Ann loves having so many different calendars, just like I do. And I gave you copies of all the calendars, so you have all of them right now for review for what I would, request as a vote on February 3rd. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, and see if there's any comments or feedback on the calendars.
Member Hoffman?
I have a question about the March dates that you're talking about. The 18th, 19th, is that the one?
Yes.
If you take off the Monday, Tuesday, wouldn't people still take a long weekend? Would you consider doing, or the Monday, Tuesday, is that what you said, or did you say Tuesday?
Well, the thing is, it's the Friday that I worry about because they'll take off. They have off essentially.
Yeah.
They have a half day and a full day, and then they'll take Friday off.
Because I would be one of those parents that'd be like, oh, it's Monday, Tuesday.
Right.
For a long weekend. Just throwing that out there.
Right, but if we put it on, if we have the full day and the half day on Monday and Tuesday of that week, there'll be less
Okay, I see what you're saying.
temptation to take another day off.
Member Cruz?
I think the one flag I would offer is in September, there will be a preliminary election. I don't see that noted, and I know the calendars haven't all come out yet on dates for that. We know November 4th would be the general election, so I'd just flag that as just needing to be notated on this calendar, and then I think we plan accordingly. But it's usually that first or second Tuesday in September for the preliminary municipal elections, so that would be my one flag. And then I think the only other question that I had, or in response to your piece on how to handle the Good Friday, I don't have strong feelings about this, so I'm comfortable with that recommendation, Dr. Zreich. What I would say is, I think we just need to be thinking about the concern that's raised around staffing buildings and getting a pulse check of what that actually looks like. And the only other thing that I was curious about is how long will it take to produce the attendance rate for the attendance incentive? So if you could let us know how long that would take to just calculate and when we would get that as committee members. I think you said end of the school year. Does that mean that we'd get it in June, or that we would get it in that one school committee meeting in July?
I think we would know probably in early June. I mean, you can see where we're headed based on the rate. I'd have to ask Jill, but I think we'd get it in June.
Okay.
It doesn't really affect the calendar for families at all because it's already an off day for kids. So it would be messaging to staff once we know if they met the attendance goal or not.
Thank you.
Member Manning?
Regarding Halloween, like, you do know that large crowds arrive before noontime on Halloween.
No, I do know that.
Just checking.
No, they arrive before the sun rises.
Right, they arrive in July.
They arrive in July. There you go, yeah.
But I just had to laugh when you said before the crowds arrive. I thought, yeah, right. The PD days in March. Okay, I'm confused. Is that a day and a half that teachers will meet with parents for conferencing with kids?
That's correct.
Then why are we calling them PD days? They're not professional development. They're parent-teacher conference days.
That's true. It's consistent with the colors, but
Normally, I would love consistent colors.
You're right. It's not.
But it's not PD,
accurate.
and I don't think that's accurate because
It is not
if we
accurate.
tally up PD days or whatever,
Yep.
I think we need to change the terminology so that people realize,
Yep.
like me, that they're not professional development. Because I thought maybe it was in that you were training, like the schools that do it, we're training the schools that don't, et cetera. But if it isn't, let's change it.
Okay.
Thanks.
The questions, comments?
Oh,
Member Cruz?
the winter break.
Yeah,
on
the winter break.
extension.
I'd love some feedback on that. Yeah.
Beyond, I think, students not returning because they might extend their travels, I also think that time of year, a lot of illnesses in households. So I think I'm comfortable with a longer winter break and testing that out. So I'd be on board with that idea. If the attendance was incredibly low, I think we just need to look at that data and see what that looked like. So, leading up to that February meeting, if you could send that over, just so we know exactly what you mean when you say that attendance was low. I think I have an idea of it, but I'd just like to get a better sense of what it actually looked like in terms of both our students, but then also staff as well.
Yeah. Mark, maybe we can, I mean, I should have had it ready for today, but Mark can probably have it ready in the next 10 minutes, what the rates were on those days.
I bet he can.
Just checking our dashboard.
It's at his fingertips, right?
He's already going.
Member Campbell?
I similarly had concerns about the 22nd and 23rd because I know that it is already so challenging to manage the pacing of learning leading up to winter break as you're trying to hopefully wrap up some units of study before segueing into the next unit fresh from the school year. So I'm just thinking about in terms of which days. That being said, sometimes that is happening at the end of the school year too. So if you're swapping those 2 days for 2 days in June, like what's the, and obviously some of this is requiring you to forecast like how many snow days, because if you bump it out to, like I think it's going to be awkward in either location. So that being said, I really am comfortable with it ending up in either spot. I think there's arguments to be made in terms of like student time on learning, whether those 2 days are in December or in June. I think teachers who are, really instructing and working through the material, like that's going to happen whether it's December or June. I did notice though, and I'm not sure if this is an error or if this is Carleton doing Carleton, that they have the school on the 22nd, but not on the 23rd. And that struck me as a little bit odd that they would come back just for the Monday before and then have off the 23rd, 24th, 25th. And so that, to me, I do have significant concerns about coming for one single day. And like I said, I'm not sure if that's a typo or if that was part of their plan, but I would prefer to see that mirror the rest of the district. In this one particular instance, I have a hard time understanding why you would come for one single day.
That's a good catch. We can ask Carleton that. I don't know if it's just Carleton being Carleton, which it could be. But that's a good follow-up. We can check.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I feel like the winter break is such a toss-up there that I kind of can't imagine either solution being particularly elegant when you realize that the days are going to get tacked on to the end of the year. But I do think the concern around illness and sickness at that time of year is particularly important to consider. But to me, it's a bit of a toss-up. And then I would flag, I know I do this every time, but the primary days and election days in general, I do still feel very uncomfortable having school that day while there are elections and strangers coming into the buildings. And I know that everybody is very proactively planning for it and, prepping, but, as somebody who works in a school every single day and that's just always at the forefront of my mind. I want to make sure that ideally we would be not having school or moving towards finding different polling places than in our buildings. It makes me really, really uncomfortable to have it. So I just want to flag that again, especially in a year where we have the mayoral election and city council and school committee. It's, it's an all play. So it just, that's always something I'm thinking about.
Further? No. All right.
Yeah, so I'll make many of the revisions that you suggested. This is good feedback. I do think the staff, the feedback I got from the staff is pretty clear that they would prefer the 22nd and 23rd be off, not just because they would like those days, but also because they're concerned about kids' attendance. And I think that's important to weigh here. And so you don't have those you do? Okay, of course he does. Okay.
79.9%
Yeah, that's
on
terrible.
Thursday, compared to the next Thursday was 92.6.
That's a big drop.
And then 82.2 to the next Friday, which was 91.2.
Yeah, I mean, that
says a
I'd
lot.
want to yank them.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to do it.
Yep.
All right.
All right, so I guess I'm next too on building grade configurations. And before I present, I wanted to pass it over to school committee member Cornell, who's on the building committee, who I think wanted to share some perspective before we get into this topic.
So I apologize because I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget anything. I'm just hoping to, because I'm a member of the building committee with Dr. Zeig and the mayor and Lisa Golden, I just want to kind of hopefully provide a little bit of clarity for folks. I know a lot of community members have participated in the process, and our middle school teachers had a great conversation with Dr. Zeig recently. So I appreciate everybody coming to the public forums with the design firm. So everybody met the design firm who showed up at those meetings. So I also hope that there are people, particularly middle school teachers, who are tuned in to this meeting. So I just wanted to put like the finest point on it that I can. I just want everybody in the community and the school committee to know that the designers, the engineers, the architects, the firm liaisons have no role to play when it comes to how we as a district educate students. None at all. The building will support the district's educational plans and objectives and not the other way around. So I think that clarity is maybe something that gets a little bit lost because we are partners with the design firm in a lot of ways, but not when it comes to delivering education. So at the moment, when talking to stakeholders and representatives, the representatives from the design firm are focused, they have been pretty focused on the needs of the high school, and I think that that's causing some confusion for some folks, at least some of the emails that I get, because the design firm has put an overemphasis on what's possible in the high school, because as of right now, that's the only part of the design that is 100% getting built. A high school is getting either, rebuilt or completely, or improved. But that's the only thing that's done, is that we are redoing the high school. So they do spend a lot of time using the words the high school, talking about the high school. Perkins and Will has already started engaging with different programs at the high school, as Mark pointed out, engaging with students, music, athletics, academics, and any ideas that they're sharing about possibilities for the middle school, and a middle high school, at this point are just ideas. Perkins and Will is a great firm. They're a world-renowned firm, and the designers and architects in general are just creative people. So they have lots of ideas and they get excited, and I'm super grateful for that. But until this body takes a vote on grade configuration, they can propose chocolate water fountains in the hallways of the middle school, and it doesn't matter. They can, none of that matters until this body takes a vote. And all of that is meaningless. And in fact, once they start talking about the high school if we vote on a middle high school they can't really begin thinking about that in a concrete way until they start talking to our middle school leaders and educators. So again, neither the design firm nor the building committee, which we all serve on, has any say in how students are educated or how programs are administered. None. That's the job of district leaders and school committee members, to collect information from educators and other stakeholders and make sure that the building supports the educational program. Again, not the other way around, regardless of what the grade configuration is. So we've had some really great feedback from the community, especially from our educators, on grade configuration in the new building on the high school campus. And the school committee had a productive retreat, which I think we're going to hear about in a minute. That was facilitated by Rachel Scarrett, who has experience as a principal of a 9 through 12 school as well as a middle high school. And I think that conversation raised a lot of really important considerations from us all, especially around the middle school experience. We're also really fortunate to have two educators, experienced public school educators and leaders on this body, and Mary Manning and Amanda Campbell, and they gave us a lot to consider also. So I just want to say, before we kind of launch into a summary of our conversation and next steps, that I think it's fair to say that I can speak for all of us here when I say that middle school students deserve an educational experience that is unique to them, that is distinct from the experiences of high school or elementary students, and that is driven and supported by middle school educators who understand and are committed to this particular age group. So I just want folks to know that, that's sort of how the conversations are happening, and when they don't happen like that in the building committee, we just remind folks that that's who and what drives the process. So however the body votes on grade configuration, I know that we're going to continue to support a rich, unique, and rigorous middle school experience for Salem kids.
All right. Yep. Do you mind putting up the presentation? Okay, so this time I'll click through the whole way. So we, as Member Cornell mentioned, we did have a series of community conversations, many in the last month and a half or so, about the building project, where we did discuss building configuration. There were 4 community meetings. One was all in Spanish, which was the most recent one at Espacio, and then there were 3 English language meetings. One was in person, and one was on, 2, it should say 2 in person, and 1 on Zoom. And then we did 1 staff Zoom session, which was pretty well attended. And there was discussions at the parent advisory group, the teacher advisory group, and the student advisory group. And additionally, I did have a chance to meet with middle school teachers last week and have a conversation with them as well about some feelings, some ideas and some strong feelings they had about 7 to 12 versus a 9 to 12. So we've had a chance to speak with a lot of people, and this doesn't include the conversations that happened last school year in June when we discussed this, and then turn back the clock to 3 or 4 years earlier when we did the master facilities plan and we had some of these conversations as well. The key question that was asked during these meetings was, what do you see are the challenges and benefits of a change in grade configuration? So I just wanted to share, and I don't want to necessarily read all of them to you, but I'll just summarize what we heard. The support for a change in configuration had to do with more efficient use of resources, spaces, and services. And this is in no particular order. I think this is just a collection of what we heard in all these meetings. That there was an opportunity for, more collaboration and mentorship across the span. Having older students be able to work with younger students, do some of the things we wanted our high schoolers to have the opportunity to do, to mentor and lead younger students. This obviously makes it easier to do. The flexibility around course offerings, the opportunity to offer middle schoolers a larger variety of courses, and if you have 8th graders or 7th graders who want to take high school level courses because they're ready, it'd be much easier to do. In the past, we've had students do that, but we have to transport them and so forth, and this would make it easier to meet students where they are academically. We heard a lot about alignment and collaboration across the middle school and high school with educators, ensuring that we could align our instructional practices to be stronger than they are right now between the middle and high school grades. Definitely heard a lot about access to specialized spaces that middle schoolers would be able to have, CTE, more advanced labs, athletics. More kids would have more access to some of these state-of-the-art spaces. Extracurricular options, we already know that our middle schoolers in Salem, because of our size, do take advantage of some of the spectacular extracurricular options that exist at the high school level around sports, band, so forth, and this would make it easier. Students do have to go back and forth, and that's not easy to do, and so more students would have access to those. I think we've heard a lot about the idea that in building a facility that would be for more grades, that more students in Salem, almost 40% of our total student population, would have access to a brand new state-of-the-art facility that is, newer, healthier, on days like today, warmer, and on hot days, definitely cooler than what they do now across the 2 buildings, now it's 3 buildings because we have middle schoolers at Saltonstall. That there will be fewer transitions for students, ability to have a stronger connection during a time in students' lives where they need those social emotional connections and relationships more than ever. And then, we have heard a lot about the need to be more competitive and in ensuring that we keep our enrollment moving in the right direction as it has been, that it provides stronger competition for places like Essex Tech and places like the Charter, where we would now be able to have our elementary students stay connected, or our sixth graders stay connected to an elementary school or a different experience, because we do lose a lot of kids from historically between fifth and sixth. We think that's changing now, but that this would be an opportunity to even be more competitive with the charter and with Essex Tech, which is the two places we lose the majority of our students to as they move into middle and high school. And again, we're on a good trend now. We've started to see shifts, but having a brand new facility would certainly help that as well at both those grade spans. We've also heard concerns about change in grade configurations. A lot of it has to do with scheduling challenges of shared spaces. Will the middle school students have equitable access to the different spaces? How do we know that the high school is not going to dominate the spaces at the new facility? There is concern, essentially about the middle school experience being lost. And Beth Ann touched upon that in her comments. The supervision of shared spaces has come up. Parents are worried about having middle schoolers and high schoolers together and what that would mean. Although I'm not sure exactly who's more scared of whom, the middle schoolers or the high schoolers or vice versa. But we did hear that influence of high schoolers might not be what is in the best interest of middle schoolers. There was concern about not having enough space for the varied programs. We have a lot of specialized programs here at the middle school and a lot of access to specialized culinary spaces, spaces for life skills programs that are middle school specific, and then same at the high school. Like, how do we make sure that that those spaces aren't lost because the footprint may be smaller? We have a large building here that was a former high school, and then obviously a high school at Salem High. Concern about that. People are worried about traffic. I hear that everywhere in Salem, but they're concerned about that's already a very busy site, and if it's not done right, then you're going to have a lot of extra traffic on that campus, and people are really worried about that. What will it do for the getting in and out of those schools? I mentioned the middle school losing identity to the high school. I think people feel. I think this speaks very positively about the middle school, how people are feeling about Collins Middle School right now. I heard very positively from the teachers that they feel good about their school, the culture at their school, the direction it's going, and they're worried about, they didn't feel that great a couple of years ago, and they don't want to revert back to that if the middle school and the high school are on the same campus. People feel very strongly about separation, and I think everywhere I've heard that separation is really important. And people, again, we heard a lot about the social emotional needs vary greatly across the different grade spans. The last thing we heard loudly is about sixth grade and the importance of taking care of the sixth graders. People are worried about the sixth graders losing out by remaining with the younger students, and that both from a social standpoint, but also from an academic standpoint, the sixth grade standards are more closely aligned with 7 to 12, and so by cutting them out, there is concern from, this came from educators who are very passionate about making sure kids are taught what they're supposed to be taught, and so that was important feedback that we received as well. So I think we received a lot of strong feedback on either side of this question, just to make your decision that much easier. But the final reflections I have is that I think there's a strong rationale for both options. I can understand the rationale for both options. I don't think there's a mistake that can be made. It's not the building that's going to determine the quality of the experience. It's the people we have. It's the design. It's the programs we offer. That's what's going to make the experience for kids. I think we do have, regardless of the decision we make, we do need to strengthen the alignment between middle and high school. And so, I think regardless of whether they're all in one building, we do have a lot of work to do to improve the alignment, both, from an instructional standpoint, but also in terms of transitions for kids. That can be improved. So whatever we do, we're still going to have to make sure that goes right and gets better, because I think, in all honesty, I think that's a place where, as a system, we have not totally hit our stride. I think if we move to a 7 to 12 facility, there's a strong preference to keep the two grade spans apart as much as possible. think the designers have heard that in the conversations we've had, but that came out loud and clear. I think as I just mentioned, there are a lot of questions about sixth grade, and I do think we're going to have to talk about that if it moves to a 7 to 12, that whether that means that sixth graders stay at elementary school or you create, some districts do put fifth and sixth graders together in their own location. That I've seen that work in some places. That may be something that this committee wants to consider, but I do think that the more I hear from our teachers, that looms very large, the worry about sixth grade. And I think I understand it, and I understood it more after talking to our staff. And then I just would submit that, as you know, the proposed vote on grade configuration, I'm proposing that it be on the agenda for the February 3rd school committee meeting, as I think you all are aware. So that's my update. Wasn't more than a few slides, and hope it. I hope it captured a ton of input that we've gotten over the last few weeks and months. So, thank you. Back to you, Mayor.
Thanks. We can open it up for discussion now on this topic. Folks. Member Manning.
Yeah, I do have some comments that I want to make that I've been sort of holding back. I've gone to all of the forums, the parent forums that have been held, and I see some of what Beth Ann Connell was referring to, and I have some difference on some of that. And I think that it was a question of whether I was going to sort of make my comments tonight or wait until the next meeting when we'd be voting, but I felt that people definitely dug in by then, and everybody will know what they're going to do. And I just want to throw some things out for folks to think about before that last chance. And I'm not using the term last chance lightly, because I do think that the idea that we can make a decision to make it a 7-12 and then make decisions about programmatic and educational and a wide variety of things after the fact, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I do want to talk first about this building, as literally the building. Like I said, I do have some thoughts, and I am going to share them, and I want to apologize because it'll take a couple of minutes, but I think this is my only opportunity to really say some of this. The building itself, everybody realizes this building's built in the early 1900s, 1911, I think, 1913, and is probably the most solid of the schools that we have still. The big addition was done in the early 1990s, 91 to 94. Took off the automotive, added the back. In 2010 to 14, did another big project, which was sort of an envelope, a lot of environmental work on the building. And the building is fitted it was the high school, but it is fitted for the middle school architecturally almost perfectly. I mean, we have in the middle school right now an auditorium that fits a grade level. I know from experience that we won't get, and I think this is one of the points that when folks listen to the presentations and it talks about, you'll have a new auditorium, you'll have a new cafeteria, you'll have a new gymnasium, you'll have a new whatever, they won't be new available to both schools equally. The reason we have a middle school auditorium that fits a grade level is because even back in the early 1990s, we already had the big auditorium at the high school. So because they had that, the middle school got a smaller one. And that's okay. The city needs a large auditorium. The middle school does not need a large auditorium. It needs an effective auditorium. And we have that. And I think that we only need to look to the success of the theater program here. And I know Dr. Zoik was mentioning earlier the success in the high school and the quality of the productions. And I think for a middle school level, we could match that easily with the history of the theater program here and the auditorium that we have. And you need to look no further than the students who've gone through our program at the middle school, then our program at the high school, and come out and gone into theater in college and, are successfully in that, working in those areas. But my point is, we have that auditorium right now available to middle school students 100% of the time. We have a full-size gymnasium, full middle school size gymnasium. There's a full schedule in there every day for phys ed classes, all day, every day. There are no free periods. It's unclear to me when I look at the after-school schedule there, which is Collins Intramurals, Collins Interschool Athletics, Salem High School on occasion having their practices here, the Boys Club, LEAP, community programs on weekends, every single morning basketball before school here for any kid that wants to come in. I don't see how that would be replicated in a 7 to 12 situation. We have a music area that has 3 music rooms, a very large band room, 3 practice rooms, 4 to 6 practice rooms. We have 4 art rooms, 4 culinary rooms, 4 tech ed rooms. We have a kiln. Music area, really, it's not like you have to develop a lot of new infrastructure there. In the technology education and in the culinary rooms, yes, we would need some money put into those programs, those rooms, to bring those up to date. But they're there and they're certainly usable. Again, I'm only mentioning these things because I have serious concern for, number one, the need to piggyback schedules exactly so that our students can use a room which may be empty. Maybe not scheduled for a particular room in an automotive or something, but it's certainly not going to be on a 50-50 basis. I doubt it's even going to be a 75-25, and it's going to tie up the middle school schedule so that the flexibility that the middle school likes, the flexibility the pilot is based on, that overlap that's not going to happen because the overlap is going to have to fit that a middle school class could go use a CTE room, which happened to be open for that period. The organization of the middle school that we have is perfect for the division into smaller houses that make sense for students of this age. The room size that we have in this building is, I believe it's 900 square feet in the majority of the building. The rooms in the addition are 750, because by the time we did the addition, what the state would pay for changed. I don't know if it's changed again, but I do know if you ask teachers, is it valuable to have that extra square feet? The answer is certainly going to be yes. This building has a very large IMC. It's an instructional media center. It's not just a library. The technology is available there. There's a classroom there. It's a multi-use space. It's available 100% of the time to middle school students. There are 3 science labs, fully equipped science labs when they were installed, which I'm not sure now what they're used for. I think some of them are maybe science rooms, but not really labs. We sort of got away from that somehow, but easily could go back to being true lab situations. We're not going to get any of this with right-sizing any common spaces or any of these types of classes at a 7 to 12. When the architects talk about right-sizing, they're talking about making it the size for the high school, and if we want to pay additional money, we get another room, but it won't be as large. I don't understand the discussion that we can make a decision to go to a building, to go to a 7 to 12, without talking programs and schedules and programmatic needs and educational needs for students, and say that we'll retrofit that all afterward. I'm unclear on how that happens. I'm very concerned about the 6th grade issue. It's beginning to feel to me like soon the 6th grade, basically, as we design things, doesn't have a home, or won't have a home. We need to figure that out. The same reasons that the superintendent used to talk about why Saltonstall students should be brought over here, many of those are the same reasons 6th graders should remain with 7th. There were climate issues, there were resource issues that are age appropriate, there were organizational issues and expectations and responsibilities. Sixth grade students in today's world don't want and don't need and shouldn't stay as an elementary student. And if you ask the students, they know that. If you ask the parents, they know that. I think it would be a big mistake to put the sixth graders back with the fifth graders. And because the state won't bring them up with the seventh graders, then where are they going to go if we take the 7 to 12 model? My other question is, what's going to happen with the pilot program? If we say we're going to extend it, the plan's to extend it to the whole middle school. Well, how are we going to have a pilot program then for sixth graders if they're down in an elementary with fifth graders? Science and social studies, and I think we all got an email on that earlier, yesterday or today, about the time on those two topics, on the time on those subjects. There's a huge difference between the way science and social studies are addressed at elementary level and middle school level. The design folks, the architects, from the very beginning, from the first meeting of the Building and Grounds Subcommittee a couple of years ago, the very first meeting that they came to present to the Buildings and Grounds first on the idea of the middle school coming out of the master plan. And when they arrived, they came over to the table over here where we were meeting, because I was on that committee then, and I still am. And all of their signage and all of their presentation was called senior, junior high school. Middle wasn't even on the name. From the very beginning, the mindset that was presented to the community started with junior, senior high school. And I remember basically being pretty vehement that the signage needed that they were presenting, they needed to change it, and they needed to change it before they came back to talk to us, because it was already setting up in folks what we were talking about. Now we hired design for that was one firm. That was sort of a feasibility firm. Or then we have the design folks. And I understand that their concern is, we've said we want to have a 9 to 12. And they're bringing in with information about a 9 to 12. A high school. Then we put in, we also might want a middle school. So I hear Beth Ann when she's explaining that their focus is more on the high school, because that's what they've been tasked right now to do. But it's wrong when they come in and at all 4 forums, I've heard them say, we're not presenting on a 7 to 12 model because you already know what a middle school is like. And this is to the parents. So there's no need to talk about that right now. We're talking on the one model because you already know the other model. And they don't know the other model. The parents that are going to these meetings have students who are going to be coming into the middle school, not that are in here or that have had kids in the middle school. The other people who don't know what a middle school is like, they are listening to presentations about you'll have a new this, you'll have a new that, you'll have a new whatever, without an understanding that you might not have a new one, or if you do, it won't be the big one that you're picturing, it'll be a small one, or you'll share with a place that you won't share 50-50. And the pictures that we're seeing are pictures of like areas where students are sitting on couches chatting and those kinds of things. And it's misleading. And I'm only saying this today because I've already said it to people from the team, from not the Salem team, from the consultants. I've already said that, the design team, I guess is the architects. I've already talked to them about it. And I've asked them to either present more information or don't present why we should go with the 9 through 12. And I sat through all the presentations listening basically to what parent concerns should be, why we should keep things separate. The other night at the last one, the consultant, the design person, I'm struggling here because to me they were architects and now they designed something, and I keep getting the terms. I want to just keep saying architect, so I'm just going to use that term. One of the architects who came to present in Spanish, which I appreciated, but what she told the parents was that all 8th graders are afraid. They're very scared to go to the high school. That they have to make new friends all over again. To meet new people. She feels, and I'm quoting, that we should do a 7-12 because it's better for students. She feels that it's less frightening. I mean, it was like, we're not paying these folks to present what they feel about which way we should go. We're not looking for people to come in and scare our parents about why the kids are all going to be afraid. All the 8th graders aren't afraid. They're excited. Some of them are nervous, but they're not afraid by the vast majority. But parents are hearing two things. They're hearing, you're going to have all these wonderful things, but you better keep them separate. And there's a lot of discussion of how to keep the kids separate at the new 7 to 12. If the focus is so important on how to keep them separate, then why are we putting them together? I'm missing this. I don't understand. Not from a physical. I mean, I can design a building that's going to keep middle school students in one place and high school in another, and never the twain shall meet. But if the point, we haven't focused on the point. The point is either to get them together or to keep them apart. We're saying, I'm hearing parents say, I can't wait till they build a middle school at the high school so I don't have to drive my daughter up to the high school to soccer practice anymore. Do you want your student on a soccer team with high school, but you don't want them in a corridor with high school? Do you want them to not come in a door, yet it's okay to go to an advanced class? I mean, I don't think we've really looked at this. What are people really thinking and saying when they're saying keep them separate? And then they're saying get them up there to have them together and have more advantages. We either have to talk about both or we shouldn't be talking about one or the other. We can't wait to talk about what the middle school needs at the high school until we've made the decision and then go back to talk about what they need. The conversations that have started with the high school folks on what do you need in your department, what do you need here, what do you need there, if we're going to build these buildings, one building at the same time, they should be happening with this level too. None of that is happening for the middle school students or the parents. That it's only happening for high school. And when is it going to happen? If we vote next week or in 2 weeks, then we retrofit getting information on what the middle school needs. And I don't think folks are getting the full scope of what they think they're getting. We're paying these folks to design for us a building that's either 7 through 12 or 9 through 12. But I believe that there's a lot of misunderstanding among some of the parents, and it's probably some of the staff too, because the presentations are unclear. I've heard middle school teachers saying, well, we've been told that we don't need to think about that yet because that'll all happen in the future. Well, when is it going to happen in the future? When the future is what? After we decide, we want a building, but the future, we have to talk about this now before we. Part of this issue, I think the issue is that the vote. I was surprised, and I think a lot of other folks were surprised that at the December meeting, Margaret from the MSBA announced that she wanted a decision by the end of December. Then she moved that to the end of January. We thought we had till the end of the year. That's a big difference. So now a lot of what probably should be talked about is not going to be. the quote, you already know about 9 to 12, so we're not going to talk about 7 to 12, it doesn't make sense to me. There have been, references to having one principal down the line. I know that's down the line, and folks say, no, that's just a possibility. But people put possibilities in people's heads, and then pretty soon they come to fruition. I'm not sure why we're discussing the issue of middle school separately. It doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense that we're either gonna talk about the whole thing, both levels, and what both levels need. It's not a tag team where you add the middle school on after the fact, and that's. I have a lot of reasons I think it shouldn't happen. But I also have a lot of concerns that it's gonna happen without due diligence on the middle school part of this. Are the people concerned about parking? Right, absolutely. You already have you're gonna have 3 schools up there. If you put the middle school up there, the parking and the traffic are problems. The common areas are going to be problems. One model they showed us, the high school had this big front door, main entrance, and around the back of the design was this little door, and it was the middle school entrance. Is that equality? Not to me. I don't know. I guess the issue is nobody has been able to give me a reason why we're doing this other than these 3 answers. So everything I've talked about is like problems I see in what's happening. But my biggest problem is I don't understand why we're doing this. One answer when I say why, I've been told, well, because they share the CTE and the new areas of the building. Middle school kids are 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. They don't need to share a brand new state-of-the-art automotive or medical assisting or electricity, any of that. They need exposure to all of those. They can do that in a middle school setting. They don't need to be waiting for their turn to have a time in the electrical room when they can have their own electrical room and take that as a subject at the middle school. All of that would change schedules. It'll depends on renovation, depends on how much we would have to put into it here. We're not even looking at it. We're not even looking at what it would take to retrofit the technology education areas here, which is CTE areas, and what it would take to retrofit the culinary areas here. Nobody's looked at that because the big jump is to get them to the high school so they can take 1 or 2 classes a week in these ultra, up-to-date programs, which I'm not saying we don't need for the high school, but we don't need them for the middle school. The second reason people tell me why, well, there'll be more after school. If there's more after school stuff, more clubs and things, how are they all going to fit? At one point, the high school's coming down here to practice. When I asked at one point about, well, why are we doing this for the clubs, one of the answers I got was, and when I said, well, we're not going to have room for everybody, one of the answers was, well, they can come down and use the middle school gym. Where's the logic in this, that we're moving a school, and part of it is the concern so they can be up at the high school to use facilities, when the answer is, well, they can be like on the teams, but they can come down to the middle school to use the gym. They had the middle school gym full time. Now we're saying, take a walk down Highland Ave. Well, the parent who doesn't want his kid walking on Highland Ave and wants to give him a ride, now they're going to ride down Highland Ave. I don't know. There's a big push. Do we have the money? It's because we have money to do the new building. Do we have to spend it on a 7 to 12 account? We just put that money into a 9 through 12. I know you can't take that money to retrofit here, those 2 areas that need it, but we could come up with it. We don't have to put it all in 1 year. We have a lot of the stuff here we can use and keep adding to it back. To close a building, a middle school building, which provides a climate, a culture, a schedule, an organization of education, 6 through 12, so that students can participate in activities and take CTE in a newer area because the money's there to do it. It's only there to do it for the high school. If we take that money toward a building that we're going to add a middle school into, it's not going to answer all these things that everyone thinks are going to come true. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to change the whole existential being of what a middle school is. It's going to cause confusion. It's going to cause it's going to change. You won't have a middle school. You'll have a add-on to the high school. I know this. I know it doesn't work well. I know in a lot of areas, I've been in middle school a long time. Over all those years, I talked with plenty of folks, informally and formally, who are in schools that were changed onto high school campuses and made a 7 through 12. And if there's no reason to do it, they would never have done it. And they don't like it. But I don't have anybody telling me what really is a good reason to do this, and I see a lot of reasons we shouldn't do it. And this is not against our building committee or folks. This is just against the whole idea. I think is something that we're going down a road we shouldn't be going. That's all.
Other members? Member Campbell?
I had one quick question. My initial question that I had raised back at the retreat was around the accountability data and how it might be, I don't know if you have had a chance to look into it, but around the fact that our accountability formulas compare like to like, which means if we are a 7 to 12, we are then only compared to other 7 to 12 schools, is my understanding. And I just am wondering if that has been looked into in terms of whether that may have some unintended consequences based on perhaps demographic variables of other 7 to 12s or maybe some unintended perks. Obviously, that's not like what the decision would rest on, but I think it would be important for us to look into it prior to making any decisions.
Yeah, I believe the answer to that is it would be compared to other 712s, but I would like to, I did not research that. I will call the accountability office and get that answer.
To back up, I know that they are compared to other 7 to
Yep.
12s. What I'm wondering is what does that do for us? Because now instead of being compared to such a large population of 9 to 12s, we would then be compared to a very select number of schools that are 7 to 12s. I don't know how many there are across the state, but I know that there are significantly fewer than 9 to
Yep.
12. And so again, and I know, obviously Lynn has a 7 to 12, and I know when we look at our accountability data, it is very, very different when you look at that particular school. And so just, really doing our due diligence around that, not that it would make or break a decision for me at least, but I think it would be important for us to know what that means going into it.
I can get you that information.
Thank you.
Member Cruz?
My questions are process related. I think one of the things that happened at the retreat, we had talked about receiving a couple of follow-ups from the design firm, just with respect to committee member questions around the two different designs and if something could be put together for us to take a look at. I hadn't seen if that had come through. I'm having trouble with my emails, but I think Dr. Zweig, you had mentioned that you'd follow up on that for us. And then the second piece was, I think we had referenced around the decision point, opportunities for members of the committee to go and visit the previous designs of the firms or folks that have gone through the process. And I was just wondering, for clarification purpose, did we say that that's something that would happen post a vote, prior to a vote? And if it's post a vote, I think it would just be great to get the list as folks are doing their final rounds of due diligence, just so that way, if we needed to make our own inquiries into some of those, we could. And then additionally, I guess we're at the 21st now. This is being proposed for the 3rd, so it would just be good to get a pulse check from the full committee about whether or not the 3rd is the appropriate interval for us to be able to do this and folks to finalize whatever due diligence they have to do, or if we should push it to the 2nd meeting in February, or as Member Manning mentioned, we said we had more time, so I guess I'm trying to figure out timeline-wise where folks are at with this, because I would hate to come to the meeting on the 3rd and then folks wanting to either push back or anything like that. So those would be the three clarifying questions I have about process.
So I'll take the last one, and then I don't know if you want to address the others, but I've asked the superintendent, we're going to put this on for the February 3rd agenda, that we've worked backwards from a timeline through the MSBA process, that, you know, even pushing this to a February meeting was, I think, shortening the time frame within which the design team has to work to meet certain deadlines with MSBA. I wouldn't want to push it even further into February. So my intention is to keep this on the agenda for February 3rd. Dr. Zarek, did you want to?
Yeah, on the other two questions, I'm not sure I understood the first question that what you're looking for around designs. Can you just
I had posed a question to the designers about whether or not they could roll something to us about the configurations, and I remember they had this agita about, well, we can't get you, I think, super detailed information. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking just for some high-level information about some of their work.
Okay.
Around the due diligence, and that's what I was looking for.
You mean other projects they've worked on, or this
That's right.
project?
Other projects that
Okay.
they've worked on. That's right.
You want to actually see the design?
I did, yes. Want to
Okay,
see the
okay.
designs.
And then the question about visiting the schools. I know in my conversation with members of the committee, or we had discussed doing that after, as you get closer to designing with the building, to visit schools, if depending on what the decision that the committee makes. We do have a list. I can provide you with a list. I do have a list of all the 7 to 12s in.
So I'd be asking for both, for a list of the 7 to 12s and then the 9 through 12s that have recently gone through the MSBA process, just so that way, as I'm doing my own due diligence, I can just make some of my own
A list of
calls.
the 9 to 12s that have gone through the
Just in
process?
the area.
Okay, in the area, yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't go statewide, please.
Okay.
Not giving you busy work.
No, I think that's the project manager should be able to get us that information pretty easily.
Thank you.
Shirley, I hope you got that. No, I hope you got all those notes down, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read my notes tomorrow. So, all right.
Member Miranda?
I just wanted to ask, so are we going to talk about what our plans are, or like what members' ideas are for the grade configuration? Like, we've heard the concerns around 6. We've previously talked about options around pre-K and kindergarten. And I think it would be helpful to have like some plan before making this decision.
Yeah, so I think that this is the platform and the time to talk about members' concerns around configuration. We heard from Member Manning pretty clearly there. I'm coming down in a place where I think that a grade 7 through 12 building does make sense. I share the concerns around the 6th grade and what the future plan for the 6th grade is, but I don't think I think that this is not a decision that we make and then tomorrow the building is done and we start the school year without anything for the 6th graders. We have literally several years to develop our thinking around what the future model is going to be. The facility master plan does lay out, I think, a very strong concept for a configuration of a 7 through 12 building, and then 1 through 6 for elementary schools, and a centralized pre-KK facility, which we've discussed, I think, before, as a potential future model for this district. I also share Member Manning's concerns around not wanting to create this building and then be scrambling last minute to think about how we have a program that supports 7th and 8th graders having equitable access to the facilities in that building for their programs, their extracurriculars. But I also believe that we have time and we have the expertise in our district to have a solid program for that before the building is operational, and that the timing for decisions that the design team need to have locked in place around whether they're proposing a 7 through 12 or a 9 through 12 building does necessitate us having to make some of these decisions now. Member Campbell.
I think I'm not sure that I necessarily want to raise this because I don't know that I necessarily want it to be a discussion point for tonight, but I do feel a little uncertain about the comment around sixth grade standards that I feel like I almost just want to flag, and maybe it's something we need to have maybe just for standards nerds like myself, but I hearing Member Miranda raise it as a concern, my own understanding of the standards is that ELA is a key anchor standard that builds from pre-K all the way through 12. So the vertical alignment on the ELA side of things is always the same from one grade to the next grade to the next grade. There is no such thing as one being more aligned than the other. The math standards, and I double checked the coherence map to sanity check myself, math standards are more closely aligned to 5th grade than they are to 7th grade. Science is a bit of a mixed bag. It's really only social studies that they're really closely coupled with. And so I just don't, that's my understanding of it. And so I don't want there to be this perception that all of the 6th grade standards only align with 7th grade standards. They, in many cases, equally align with 5th and 7th, with the exception of social studies. So I think just a point that I would flag for possible consideration for future. I'd want to do my own sanity checking on my own thinking of it.
So you have some homework to do.
Yes.
Got that all down?
Well, I mean, my answer to this, a lot of, it's never about the building. It's always about how the design. And I never think schools are going to be defined by the grade configuration. I think whatever is done, whatever decision is made, is going to require, careful planning. Regardless if it's a 7 to 12 or 9 to 12, and a design for the new space. I think there are some good questions here to answer. I don't think there's a bad decision that can be made here. I think we have to do what's in the best interest of this community in this moment in time. There are a lot of considerations, and anything that's different is scary for people, for sure. But I think you have to weigh, the context here, the size of our district, what the needs are of the kids we serve. I'm not concerned either way with what the decision. There's going to have to be extensive planning, but we're also 5, probably 6, 7 years away from opening the new building. And I know that'll come sooner than later, but there's ample time to plan for whatever's next. As I said before, I do think we have work to do with continuity between the grade levels and the alignment between our middle and high school, which is not where it needs to be right now. And so I will get you all the information. Let me just clarify, I have a question here about accountability data, list of 7 to 12s, and then recent 9 to 12s in the area. There's questions about configuration, what the design could look like is what I'm hearing. Mandy, you're looking for that. And then I think, Amanda, you're bringing up questions about curriculum and and so I'd have to connect with our academics folks, which I see nodding over there, just to get their feedback on the specific content areas and what their reflections are. So I can provide all of that to you in the next week or so, and ultimately it's going to be up to the committee about when they want to vote. But I know time is of the essence, as the designers need to know which direction we're going. No later than the beginning of February. That's what we've been told. All right. I just want to share. We are getting questions regarding. Just want to pull up my regarding immigration, and I just want to make a comment about that because I think it's really important. We're working on getting clear guidance to staff about what, to the extent where immigration officials come to schools. And I know just today there was some information about the ban being lifted about coming in and around schools, which is very concerning to me as an educator. And at this point, we have guided all our school leaders to direct officials to my office and to our legal team. Well, our legal team is our attorney. We don't have a legal team. Although sometimes I feel like I play a legal team, but we have an attorney that we speak to. But as a reminder, the Salem Public Schools does not ask for any immigration status from current or prospective students, and we do not keep that data. We don't care. It's not important to us. We enroll who comes to our door, and we enroll them as soon as possible into our schools. And we believe that schools are protected locations, despite some of the messaging that has gone out, because and places that immigration officials should avoid. Our schools are not going. We will not allow our schools to be places where immigration officials feel like they can take liberties with our students. So I just want to make that clear. We do have work to do to give more guidance to our staff who have been asking for that, and to give our families, that information as well. And so we are. Laura Saad is on Zoom, but we are preparing an information session for some of our newcomer families in the next week or so. So I just wanted to make that point. And there's obviously other
Member
people.
Hoffman.
I have a question. As we're looking at these requests to go out of Massachusetts to
Yep.
do school things, how are we going to protect those students and also our LGBTQIA plus students that are going to run into problems with bathrooms, locker rooms, or also potentially not being okay to be who they are, and how do we protect them if they use a different name or go by a different gender? Like, these are all thoughts, these are all my concerns of being responsible for children in our city to go to a different, like, we really need to research what their safety is.
Yeah, it's just pathetic that we have to have these conversations. But you're right, and thank you for asking that question. I don't have a good answer for you right now, and I'd be muddling through some bad response. So, but I thank you for raising that, and I will be sure to provide direction, because I'm sure there's questions that our staff is going to have, because I do believe our staff feels very strongly, has a lot of the same values we do, and they're going to be very concerned about putting any of our children in harm's way, whether it's in this state or, but obviously there's more concern when you leave a state like Massachusetts.
Member Cruz.
Thank you, Dr. Zweig, for including this in your superintendent's report. I was going to say something about this during announcements with the priority enforcements changing, and then additionally the rescinding of the 2012 memo that created the protections for schools, churches, and other sensitive locations. What I would say to you, Superintendent, is that immigration law and anti-discrimination law, I think, requires maybe some external support beyond school committee council. So I'd be happy to connect you with folks at the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Association, and then some of the other statewide legal groups like Lawyers for Civil Rights, ACLU, et cetera. I do think it is a kind of all hands on deck to understand what's going to be coming out of the federal administration. And there's some of these organizations, MIRA in particular on the immigration front, they're already hosting Know Your Rights events and sending out materials to school districts to try to help and advise them through this period. So I'd be happy to send out that information and to share those contacts with all members of the committee, just so that you all have those at your fingertips in the event that you do get questions from members of the community, our educators, or even our students. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'd certainly take any of those. We do have a couple of statewide webinars coming up specifically about this topic with the Department of Education and with the Association of School Superintendents. And Laura Saad has been very good about starting to put us in touch, and we're trying to accumulate as much information as possible. This is uncharted. Well, it is uncharted for sure, because this feels different than it did the last time around. And so, but again, you have access to a lot of information that we don't have, so I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Cornell.
I think once you and Member Cruz can kind of take the pulse a little bit in the coming weeks, I think it would be worth having a committee of the whole meeting to really take a look at where we need to have strong language in our policies, or the ways in which this body can reaffirm for our educators and district leaders that we support them, in helping to make our students feel safe and respected. And but some of the, like what Member Hoffman brought up, which is like, yeah, what's going to happen? We're going to approve students to leave the state to go places, and what can we protect them? Should we be
Allowing that.
talking to families about whether or not it's a good idea for students to go to Florida? So those are conversations that I think a conversation that we can have as a body when we have a little bit more information. I will say that Member Hoffman and Member Miranda and I last night attended a forum on LGBTQ joy, and the Lieutenant Governor was there, and Paul Tucker was there, and they were helpful in making, I felt a little bit better about the laws in place in Massachusetts. And so I asked Lieutenant Governor Driscoll if she would be willing to come and, if we had a cow, maybe talk to us a little bit about, where we can sort of beef ourselves up and where we're doing okay, and just, counsel us on how to protect our kids.
Yeah, certainly. And I know Laura is very immersed in this work, and I think we plan to do something for our families. I believe it's by the end of January. We were hoping to do something for families, so we certainly can come back to you. I think it is worth having more of a conversation. Thank you for asking that question, Member Hoffman. I think that I hadn't thought about it like that, and that's really helpful. We should be thinking about those things, so thank you.
Member Manning?
Can you just clarify, are you talking by the end of January for families on LGBTQ issues, or families on immigration?
Immigration.
Okay.
Member Cruz?
I just offer to members of the committee, if you want to reach out to me on an individual email basis about particular requests from different types of subject matter experts about what might be coming down the pike from the federal administration, just send me kind of your topic areas, and then I'm happy to put some time into put together a pretty solid and comprehensive list.
I just have one more thing. Is that tomorrow night is our Early Childhood Expo. Start time, Kim, is 6:30, where our entire team presents to families who are interested in the Salem Public Schools. We're very excited to welcome new families to all our early childhood programs, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds. It's overwhelming at first, but then we follow that up with an in-person meeting here at Collins, which is the week after. And so it's tomorrow night, 6:30 on Zoom. We hope to see. Please share it with your neighbors and friends and folks who have little kids at home who are interested in coming to school. We've done a really good job this year, Laura and the family engagement facilitators, of reaching out to the early childhood, our early childhood partners, as well as home daycares as well, and childcare locations, so that we hope to have a good turnout for families at this event. So just again, tomorrow night, we will be showcasing all the good work that's happening across the Salem Public Schools in early childhood. So with that, Mayor, I think there's some transfers on here. Elizabeth?
Yeah, Jen, just so folks who might have the agenda know, the enrollment targets
Yes, thank you.
Update will be provided at the next meeting because the data is not available.
Yeah, the reason behind that is the state had said they were going to publish the data for low income by last Thursday, and they did not. And even though we know it internally, I want to keep consistent with the data point we've used every year, which is DESE's published October 1 data. And so because we don't have that official data yet, I can't present it until we have that final. So that will be on next month's or next meeting's agenda. And then the next item is
The
mid-year
budget-
transfers.
budget
Yep.
transfers.
Good evening. There was a memo in the packet about a few transfers that I am bringing to this body for your approval. I noted that in most cases, these transfers are moving from expense line to personnel lines, which is why I am bringing them to this group. It has been the practice to note for the committee when money moves from non-personnel to personnel. Technically, all of these are moving from non-personnel to personnel, but in two instances, the funds were always intended for personnel expenses and were budgeted to a non-personnel line. So that is the HR stipends. There's a $20,000 transfer recommended from contracted services to stipends. Those are for the talent finder. It was always intended to be a stipend, and it was budgeted to the contracted services line. So that is a cleanup. The second one is similar. There is a $9,000, it's the last one on the memo, a $9,000 transfer recommended from Horace Mann Contracted Services to a paraprofessional line, and that is to subsidize the salary of the lunch paraprofessional, which was part of last year's budget process, and it was budgeted to contracted services instead of a salary line. The other stipends are adjustments that are being recommended mid-year based on what each either department or school has anticipated for year-end stipend costs. So either because there were additional events and additional cause for professional development for which employees receive stipends, or because there is more work than had been originally planned. So these other three, the first from IT, the third from New Liberty, and the fourth from Carleton, reflect either the department head or the principal's recommendation based on where they can move money to provide stipends for staff. So I am asking for your approval to make these transfers.
Any questions? Member Cruz.
Just so I'm clear, and I think we have one department head here from IT. So with respect to the tech supplies being transferred, those would go to stipends for staff that are part of the IT team?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is within the IT cost center, but it's going from non-personnel to personnel, which is why it's here.
Okay.
And so just on the table, thank you for the question. I should have just oriented you to it. On the left-hand side, it's the department. The second column from the left is where the money is going to. And then as you go over, it's where the money is coming from. So,
so I understand that is just a shift in where the priorities should lie. I guess just with that one in particular, because it's tech supplies, is it anticipated that we'll have enough to cover everything we need in the budget without this 5.3? All right, just wanted to get the reassurance. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions?
The last two items, I think we talked about the MSBA quite a bit, about the grade configuration and finance and operations report. I don't believe we have any other than the transfers that were just requested. So that concludes my comments, Mayor.
Subcommittee reports. Anything from subcommittees? Policy?
We, at the request of the larger committee, the policy subcommittee reviewed the Marine Corps Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps Memorandum of Agreement. And it does not require a vote, but the three members of the subcommittee recommend that the superintendent signs the memorandum of agreement with the Marine Corps. I would also just note that it's the perspective of the mayor and the city solicitor that having a riflery range at the high school violates the city ordinance against weapons in public buildings. And so that...
Not that ordinance.
Which one?
It's the ordinance prohibiting air rifles.
Oh, thank you. The ordinance prohibiting air rifles. And so then that is out of school committee hands and something that the next step is for the city to bring that to the attention of the Marine Corps.
Cool.
They're going to respond great.
I bet.
The other thing that I just want to put on people's radar, which does not require a vote, is we've been asking for a while for some updates from the Hall of Fame committee, and they did a lot of work. And so they have two proposed amendments to their bylaws, which are, in our opinion, good proposals that we recommend they move forward with. The first is to amend a bylaw, the non-discrimination bylaw, wherein they, and I will just say to school committee members, I just sent you the wrong version of this because we changed some of the language. They made a little mistake around Title IX. But effectively, they want to give special consideration to women when considering people to induct into the Hall of Fame because Title IX made it difficult for women to participate in sports. Schools made it difficult for women to participate in high school sports prior to 1972. So that's one of their charges when considering new Hall of Fame members. And then the second piece of this is that as part of their kind of rubric for analyzing candidates, they also have created a legacy level of the Salem High Hall of Fame, which basically retires a uniform for, and it's framed and hung in Salem High School for exceptional graduates. And so we don't have any women in that category at the moment. I think there are a lot of us who have a particular woman in mind that will be that person. And so again, this doesn't require a vote. I'll ask Shirley to resend the one that I edited with the language to everybody so that you can see it. But again, we think that this should go forward. We think these are good changes, and it really doesn't require a vote. I don't know if either of you want to add anything to it.
I just would add that when I've inquired about, how do I get the form to fill out to nominate someone to the legacy level, the AD's answer has been we need things okayed by the school committee. So hopefully this will just move this all along.
And I think this is that moment because they asked for a vote, but it doesn't really require a vote. It just sort of is our, we discussed it and think that they're doing a good job.
So I can get that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, this is their green light to move forward with the materials.
I think so.
I'd just like to express my gratitude to the athletic director and the athletics committee for all the work that they did to put this together. It was no small feat. We gave them a pretty big task, and we were having a lot of conversations about the future of sports within the district. And I certainly want to thank Member Cornell for all of the legwork that you've done, both in the policy subcommittee to shepherd this conversation, but then additionally your direct engagement with those stakeholders. And I know Member Manning and I were doing our own due diligence on the side to kind of just check on how things were working. So it really was I'd say a district-wide kind of effort. So I think they landed at a really good place in terms of a process, and hopefully we'll be able to celebrate some of the untold stories here in Salem High School's illustrious sports history.
Yeah, and I would also just like to thank Bob Geswell, who was the previous athletic director, who I had several conversations with, and he was helpful in trying to remember and go back and research things that were sort of not on paper around, so I just want to acknowledge him and Peter Dolan.
Any other subcommittee reports? Nope. All right. Motions and resolutions. We have policy 5103, second reading.
I move to approve policy 5103, controlled choice student assignment policy for second read.
Second.
Motion made by Member Cornell, seconded by Member Cruz. All in favor? Any opposed? The matter carries. Calendars and enrollment targets we're deferring, correct?
Yeah, we're going to
No votes.
defer, yep.
Then is there a motion to approve the proposed budget transfers, mid-year budget transfers?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Member Campbell, seconded by Member Manning. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The matter carries. Any announcements?
Is this the old announcements and resolutions category or something? Like, when, can I ask a question?
You can.
Could I ask that in his report, the student rep mentioned that the configuration had come up at discussion at their meeting, and that he felt, the majority of the kids were in favor of the 9 through 12. Could the school committee see that in more detail? More like, do you take notes at those? Do you have any reference of what they were talking about when you?
I don't have any specific notes from the meeting, but
I mean, I don't need it right now. I just wondered if you could provide us with something.
so next time we meet, next Monday, I can definitely put in a topic. Dr. Zreck, we can put on the agenda for everyone.
Well, that's your meeting,
Oh,
Mark.
yes.
I'm not at those, so you're in
Where's-
charge of the agenda. So
The
you
next one would be the
47th.
no, the one I meet with you.
Oh, that one's on February 3rd.
Okay,
But
February 3rd.
you guys could discuss it next Monday if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So
Could you get it to us
Yeah.
before then, before the 3rd then?
I can certainly bring it up.
Thank you.
Budget forms.
Oh, the dates.
Yeah.
Do you have them right there?
You mean, bring it up on your meeting at 27.
So I'll share the
Get it to us somehow.
district's budget forums for the public have been scheduled for Tuesday, February 4th from 6 to 7:30 at the high school, and then Monday, February 10th from 6 to 7:30 on Zoom.
And then there's a separate one for staff only. We're starting to engage tomorrow night. Thursday night, we're meeting with the parent advisory group, so we will be talking to them about the budget as well. So the process, now we move into the budget input phase. So that's, So we hope to see as many people there at the forums, but I'll also be engaging with teacher advisory, parent advisory, and the student advisory as well.
When are you meeting with the parent advisory?
Thursday night.
Yeah,
Yes, would you like to come?
I would, just as a finance, thanks.
Sure.
All right. No further announcements?
To adjourn?
I'll second.
Motion made by Member Cruz, seconded by Member Miranda. All in favor? Any opposed? The matter carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.